It's really, to be honest with you, kind of a foundation of what we've created with Main Street Advisors. It was something that I noticed working for the Wall Street machine, because I do consider myself a reformed Wall Street broker, that greatly bothered me. But it's something that everyone should be made aware of, but most people aren't. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get this technology to work the way that I want it to work here. We're going to do this. And all right, so what we're going to do is a little fun thing here, a little interactivity, because I can't hear anybody. This is my first webinar, by the way, using our new Lightboard technology. But I wanted to see if I could run a poll by you. You know, I like to try to get a little bit of an assessment as to what everyone's acumen is in terms of investing. And so what you have here is two different portfolios or investments, an orange one and a gray one. Now the orange one is a bit more aggressive, and it's going up 25%, down 15, up 25, down 15 for 8 years. And then you have a more conservative one. It's only going up 15% and then only going down 5% for 8 years. So real quick, I'd like to go ahead and, if you could, go ahead and go to the section that says polls and click on that and just put in what you think. Which one do you think actually outperforms the other? Should I do some Jeopardy music during this? It's very interesting. I'm not sure if this is skewed because I have a whole lot of our existing clients and existing prospective clients on this webinar. But this is not the typical response that I get, to be honest with you. Right now, we're sitting at 60% saying that the gray, more conservative portfolio outperforms the orange one. When I do this in a classroom setting, in the past, prior to COVID, which we will get back to, and that's really what we're trying to do here, is a classroom setting that doesn't require you physically going to a classroom. Normally, it is the orange portfolio that wins, and that's where it looks like that's what we're at now. It's now 60-40. So I'm going to go ahead and move on from waiting on the poll. But what you have here is a very interesting phenomenon, in my opinion, and that's that most people believe wholeheartedly when they see this more aggressive portfolio that it outperforms the other. And that's because you've all been taught a concept. It's a concept that is incredibly well known. This concept of risk and reward. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. The idea is that the more risk you take, the more potential reward that you have. And I can tell you right now that that's not true. It is true in some situations. Well, the highest risk investment you can make is a business, which is the highest rewarding. But it's not true in a lot of cases, because what you're going to find out real interestingly here is that the aggressive portfolio compounds 27.4% over these 8 years, and the conservative one compounds 42.5%. It's a pretty dramatic difference, wouldn't you say? Now, also very interestingly, I'm going to move on here. I want to talk about a little bit more about the, forgive me about my lack of familiarity with this technology. There'll be a few hiccups here and there, but I want to talk a little bit more about this. Really what it boils down to is how the math actually works. When you look at, and you take a closer look at a word that you guys are all familiar with, it's the word compounding. Of course, Albert Einstein famously said that it was the most prolific invention in all of human history. I'm not sure if he actually said that, but it's a famous quote. And ultimately, when I heard that quote, I actually started thinking about it, and I was like, you know, maybe I don't understand compounding, because why would he say that? I mean, he could have said a lot of things. I mean, physics was my favorite class in college, and we could talk about the theory of relativity all day long. It's fascinating stuff. So why would he say compounding? And so I started to study it, and I realized that I did not understand compounding. And I would say that most people do not, frankly. And in fact, sadly, I would say most financial professionals do not understand compounding. So let me just reveal some things to you that are very, very helpful. And that's that, when I first started to examine compounding, before I really fully wrapped my mind around it, I had this, I guess, predisposition that positive compounding and negative compounding were equal forces. I mean, if you think about compounding like a snowball going down a hill and it just grows and grows and grows, you would think that it really does the same thing, whether it's going up or down, accepting gravity, of course. And what we found is that negative compounding is actually far, far more powerful than positive compounding. They are not equal forces at all, As an example, there's a very simple mathematical truth as to why this is the case. And it's simply because anytime you are experiencing negative compounding, you're going from a higher number to a lower number, right? And anytime you're experiencing positive compounding or making money, this is losing money in case you're not familiar, and making money, you are going from a lower number to a higher number with positive compounding. So just to illustrate what I'm talking about, if you had, say, $500,000 invested in something and you had a great year and we made 25%. So now we're up to $625,000 and we're feeling pretty good. But then the next year we're going to go down 25%. So keep in mind, we went up 25 and now we're going down 25. Well, now you're actually at about $468,000. That's not exact, but it's head math. And so you're below where you started, and it's just because of a simple mathematical truth that I'm sure is making sense to nearly everyone on this video, and that is that when you have a percentage movement based on a higher number, you have the resulting number is greater, right? So this is very important to recognize, is that this always happens. It's a law. Anytime that something is going down, it has a greater impact than when it's going up. Now, a lot of you probably are familiar with this concept. Some of you might not be. But it's important to wrap your mind around this because interesting truth that I want to share with you, which is really the foundation of everything that we do here. And it's that in this business, and not just in the advisory business, but if you're watching CNBC, or if you're watching Bloomberg, or if you're listening to some financial commentator, or reading a newsletter, or looking at investments, or talking to an advisor, or looking at a financial plan, working on a financial plan, you're going to see a word over and over and over and over. And this word is a very important word. We're going to spend a little time talking about it. And it's the word average. Now, the truth is that averages really kind of don't exist except to sell you something, because you are never going to earn an average. In fact, if you have the ability to have negative compounding, if you have something that can lose, then you are always going to underperform the average over any extended period of time. So going back to this slide that I was showing you earlier, if you'll notice up here, that both of these portfolios, despite having I'm going to make it full screen for a second, despite having a very different end result of 27.4% and 42.5%, both of them have an average return of 5%. Isn't that interesting? I mean, if you think about it, every time you've ever looked at a mutual fund, it'll have the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 7 year, 10-year average. Or they'll say, if you're being sold something, they'll say, well, this portfolio average is 8%, or the market average is 7%. And you hear all of these things. Well, I can tell you that the first time that I started to stumble upon this interesting truth, it was not related to the math. It was that when I was going through training at the Wall Street firm that I used to work at, I thought it was baffling that most of the time we spent in training was on retention, how to talk people out of leaving. And of course, I thought to myself, why are we spending so much time on this? I really would much rather learn about investing. I don't want to learn about how to talk people out of leaving the firm. And of course, this is talking clients out of, firing me as an advisor. And it wasn't until I learned this math that the light bulb finally went off for me, and I was like, okay, I get it. This whole industry is designed to overpromise using averages, underdeliver because of what actually happens with compounded averages, and then talk you out of leaving, rinse, and repeat that. So let me just show you some more about this, because I know sometimes this can be a little bit confusing for some folks.
Click the card in the corner of the window to continue this webinar. Please remember to like this video and subscribe for more educational content.